So, distensibility contributes to the continuity of blood flow during the entire cardiac cycle. It allows arteries to recoil elastic. So, kung ang artery is distensible, it will expand. It also helps, pag-expand kasi yan, para yung elastic, no? The more you pull, the greater the force if you release it. Okay ba tayo? Kaya nakakatulong din siya sa flow kasi pag contract ni left ventricle, mag-expand si aorta. Pero pag relax ni left ventricle, mas bongga din ang impact pag relax ni aorta. It will push the blood towards the periphery. Rather, pwede naman pabalik din. Kaso lang, nag-close na si aortic valve, so hindi papasok to the LV. Okay ba tayo lang? And that dumping actually, or that recoil, also helps the flow towards the coronary arteries. Alam niyo ba yun? Hindi yun alam. The flow to the coronary arteries is during the diastole, not during systole. Alam niyo ba yun? Hindi. Oh, sad. So when the left ventricle contracts, the flow of blood is like that towards the aorta. Ang coronary arteries mo is like this. Di ba nakatayo ako? Ang aorta ko is like ganito. Whereas my coronary arteries are placed like this. So when the left ventricle contracts, papunta doon ang flow sa aorta. Maakuri man lumiko, nakakaloka, di ba? Kay dugo man ito. And yung angle niya is about 20 to 30 degrees. Di ba di rin manali? Maakuri magliko, no? Parang madiretso ka nga doon, tas nga di itong liliko, hindi. Nakakaloka. Pag driver siguro maintindihan. Anyway, but during the diastole, when the left ventricle contracts, the blood can backflow. This time, napanganganahe coronary arteries. So, madali na itong flow. Nag-gets niyo ba yun? So, the blood flow to the coronary arteries is during the diastole, not during systole. Naintindihan niyo yun? And that blood that passes to the coronary arteries will go to the myocardium. It will perfuse the myocardium during the diastole. Alam niyo ba kung bakit? Kasi during systole, the muscles are contracting. Ang taas ng pressure ng muscles kaysa sa coronary arteries. How can you feel blood? Di ba, from higher pressure to lower pressure. Kung mas mataas ang pressure ng muscles kaysa sa coronary arteries, how can the coronary arteries feel blood to the muscle? Mahirap, no? Whereas during the diastole, the ventricles are relaxing. This time, the coronary arteries can feel blood into the myocardium. Naintindihan niyo yun? Alam niyo pag tachycardic ang pasyente, alin ang mas nababawasan, systole or diastole? Diastole, my dear. Hindi systole. Kasi si systole mas mahina, si diastole mas makapal. Mas mahaba. So during systole, during tachycardia, mas mababawasan yung phase or yung time ng diastole. Ang mahirap nun, coronary perfusion and perfusion to the myocardium is during the diastole. Di ba? Kawawa naman, no? Kung may coronary artery disease ka pa, may bara ka pa, tapos nabawasan pa yung flow, yung time ng pag-flow. Kaya alam nyo, pag mga nag-heart attack ng pasyente, tas tachycardic, we want the heart rate to be lower. Okay ba tayo doon? So, distensibility lang, ang haba ng pinuntahan no? So, distensibility, aside from allowing the blood, receiving the blood from the previous vessel, kasi kung hindi siya distensible, hindi niya ma-receive yung 120 ml or 150 ml. Tama? But because the aorta is distensible, because of distensibility, it can accommodate the amount of blood. Okay ba tayo doon? At the same time, during relaxation, because of elasticity, na-stretch mo yung vessel, it will also help during the diastole to move the blood volume towards the next segment. Naintindihan niyo yun? Okay. Nandiyan naman yun eh. Arteries to recoil. Yung isang story ko, Doctor, paano naman kung naunat na masyado, tapos di rin nahiya. Parang pante, di ba? Garter ba? Nasobrahan na naman ang kaunat. Hindi less distensible. More distensible siya, but less compliant na siya pangit na yung recoil. Okay ba tayo na? Distensible naman, nauunat, pero ang pag-recoil, keme na kasi naunat mo na beyond, you have stretched the garter beyond its capability. So, na-destroy na niya structure. Ganun din ang aorta. If that aorta, let's say, is aneurysmal, but when we say aneurysmal, it's larger than its normal size, and the conformation of the anatomy is abnormal na. So, an aneurysm, yes, distensible, mauuna, pero less compliant na siya. Okay ba tayo nun? Pagkaiba ang distensibility and compliance. Ayan po, mga kapatid. When we say distensibility, you are talking about the fraction of the volume over an increase in pressure. Ano yan? Ang hirap naman maintindihan ng English. Oh my God. Whereas when we talk about compliance, you are looking at the exact amount of volume over an increase in pressure. My God. Ang hirap nun. Ako kasi, naintindihan ko siya because of ejection fraction and stroke volume. When the left ventricle contracts, yung lumalabas na dugo is stroke volume. That's like compliance. You are looking at the exact amount of volume. Whereas ejection fraction, you will not look at the exact volume only. You will look at the fraction ng stroke volume. Meaning, kailangan mong tingnan yung previous volume over yung lumabas na volume divided by the previous volume. In percent yun. Kasi for example, 120 ml lang, pero kanina naman 140 ml lang. Ilan ang ejection fraction? Baka mas maliit. Kesa sa 120 ml din, but the previous amount was 200 ml, mas malaki ang ejection fraction nun. So nag-iiba ang ejection fraction, but the same amount of volume. Naintindihan niyo yun? Or hindi? Hindi, mahirap. Mahirap ba? Kunwari, 120 ml ang lumabas. Pero previous volume ng diastole is 200. Ang lumabas, 120. Ilan ang natira?
80.
Ha?
80.
80. So, try to compute the fraction there.
40%.
So, 200 minus 120 divided by 200. Ilang percent ang lumabas? Ilan? 40? 40. So, for example, yung isang vessel naman is, yung 40% ba yun? Okay. For example, meron din namang isang vessel na 250 before. And then ngayon, yung lumabas is 120. Ilan ang fraction mo? Ilan? Compute ako, ulit ba ako? Sige nga ko, parang kita mo ka-alagin dito. Tira? 250 minus 120 divided by 250. Tira?
Around 50%.
50%. No? 52. Kanina, 40. So nagkakaiba. Same amount of volume, but nagkakaiba ang fraction. Because you are, in fraction, you are talking about the percentage of the entire volume. Hindi lang exact, not to the exact volume. Ang compliance, you are looking at the exact volume. While distensibility, you are talking about the fraction. Okay, which is more important, distensibility or compliance? In hemodynamics, it is compliance, not distensibility. Kasi, you want to look into, kahit ang isang vein, ang isang vessel is more distensible, pero konti lang naman ang volume na nandun, less distensible siya. Less compliant siya, More distensible siya, pero konti lang naman ang volume sa kanya, less compliant. Kesa naman yung isa, less distensible, mas makunti yung space, pero more volume ang nasa kanya, mas compliant siya. Kasi, kayanan niya yung napakadaming trabaho in a short space. Kesa sa isa, malaki ang nililinis niya, malaki yung, malaki yung room pero konti lang naman ang lilinisin niya. Kesa sa isa, apartment lang na, konti, pero sobrang dami ng tatrabahuin niya. Okay ba tayo doon? So, mas compliant yung isang trabado. Hindi nyo pa rin naintindihan. Lang ako rin man, Diyos ko Lord. So, compliance versus distensibility, compliance is better than distensible. Kahit more distensible ang vessel na yan, but less amount of volume ang nasa kanya. Yung isa naman, less distensible, but there are more volume that it's contained in that vessel. That letter B vessel is more compliant compared to the other one. Bahala kayo sa buhay niyo. Ang isang malaking kwarto na to, pero ang utos lang sa'yo magwalis. Kaysa sa next door, next room, mas shorter, mas konti na room, pero ipapapaghanis ka, silihig, ipapatrapo ka, ang CR, ipapabagnos pa, kinalang pabutangan, maglalaba ka pa, magtutuon ka pa. Hinumanit mas trabado. Yung isang room, no? More compliant siya. So, when we talk about compliance, that's more important in a vessel. Kahit konti lang yung size, a little bit distensible siya, but there are more volume there, that's more compliant. Kaysa sa isang vessel na napakalaki, pero konti lang naman ang nasa kanya na volume, yes, distensible siya, but less compliant siya. So when we talk about compliance, you are talking about the ability to expand and contain that volume in an exact amount of pressure na hindi tataas masyado ang pressure. Okay ba tayo? So, a vein, for example, the veins, they are more distensible, at the same time, more compliant. Wala, ang hirap ng buhay. Diyos ko na, wala ka siya sa buhay. So, a vein is 8 times more compliant and more distensible than arteries. That's why they are capacitance vessel. They can contain large amount of volume without too much increase of pressure. Kasi pag expand niyan, kahit marami yung volume, bababa yung pressure. Tama? Pero kung hindi naman siya nag-expand, dumami yung volume, tataas yung pressure, pangit yun. Kasi makakakos ka ng pangit na flow. Hindi ka mag-forward flow. So luckily, the veins also expand to contain large amount of volume at the same time reduce the pressure. And then, if that vein is stimulated by sympathetic activity, that vein will contract, the vessel will have a reduced diameter, tama? The volume will reduce, the pressure will also reduce kasi napunta na siya sa right atrium na ipasok niyo. Tama ba tayo? So kung gimbulok ka kasi natututuro ni mo dugo, hindi ka agad-agad namamatay because there will be increase in sympathetic activity. At least mga ilang liters pa mo, yung mga 1.5 to 2 liters na nandoon sa vein will have to be anong term yan? Recalled. Withdraw, ganon. Kumbaga, ATM card. Makakuha dito additional para lang may makasirculate. Tama ba tayo doon? Mahala kayo sa buhay. So, let's talk about this picture, picture. Kailangan magaling kayo mag-analyze ng mga ganyan. Kasi alam niyo ba yung picture niyo, pag kumukuha yun ng exam, doon yun sa mga figure, table, kaya yung mga ganyan, dapat meron kayong pornographic memory. Dapat hindi pornographic. No, ano ba dapat ang term? Photographic memory. Hindi pornographic. So kung nagle-lecture, dapat you focus on memorizing the picture. Hindi yung pipinanunahan ako may maglaway. Kasi during exam, hindi yan makakatulong. So let's try to analyze this. Look at the pressure here. This is in time. Okay? So, for example, ang isang vein, in-injectionan ko bigla 50 ml. Are you with me? In-injectionan ko. What do you think will happen to the pressure inside that vein? It will go up. Because in physics, an increase in volume is tantamount to an increase in pressure. So, giintig ako ang pag-inject, ang nurse na traidor, kag-inject ang 50 ml. Tama? Ma-increase na masingan ito pasyente, agoy. Oh, so nag-increase ang pressure inside the vessel. So the pressure increased from 5 to, pero ito, sige, sabihin natin 12. Mahirap kasi mag-13. 12. Immediately. But look what happened. In a span of, mga ilan yan? 15 minutes? 20 bulok, no? 20 minutes, so 20, 40, 40 minus 20, tama, 20 bulok. In a span of 20 minutes, look at what happened to the pressure. The same amount of volume inside the vein, but look at what happened to the pressure. It declined. From 12 to, ilan? 9? Taray, agree ako sa 9. Oh, sige. So 9. Bakit nag-decline yung pressure? Naging compliant siya or nag-distend siya? Okay ba tayo? So, what if I removed yung 50 ml na in-inject ko? Ginbunot ko agad-agad, tigda, 50 ml one. What do you think will happen to the pressure? Immediately decline. Why? A reduction of volume means a reduction or a decrease in pressure. Kaya nag-drop from 9 up to, sige, sabi mo 1 millimeter, 1.5, grabe naman ka, strict example na lang. Okay, biglang nag-drop, but over a span of how many minutes? Ha? Ilan yan? From 40 to 80. In 40 minutes, look at what happened to the pressure. It went back to baseline of 5 millimeters mercury. Bakit? Bakit mga kapatid? Is that distensibility or compliance? Now, there's a difference between distensibility and compliance. That's the difference. So, nang binunot mo yung tubig, 50 ml, nag-drop yung pressure, over time, tumaas yung pressure because the vein tried to be compliant. There was a small amount of volume there. Hindi niya hahayaang ganyan lang. It has to constrict to increase the pressure a little bit to have a physiologic flow. Kasi kung hindi siya mag-constrict, napakababa ng pressure, hindi din naman enough, di ba? Kailangan din naman ng pressure para mag-flow. Tama? Although, gusto din naman natin na mataas ang pressure sa left, mababang pressure sa right, para bongga ang flow. Pero kung sobrang din namang baba, nakakaloka. Di ba, kailangan yun yung nag-flow din naman, may ada ba energy nga na-flow ba? Pero kung wala naman na-duso, nakakaloka naman. So, we are talking about compliance over here. The vein will try to constrict to accommodate the decline in volume to have an enough pressure inside the vessel. We maintain that pressure, that 5 millimeters mercury, to maintain the 5 millimeters mercury from baseline. Ayaw niya ng sobrang taas. So if you suddenly increase the volume because of the sudden increase of pressure, it will do something. By being distensible and compliant, it will expand to reduce the pressure. If you remove too much volume, it will try to vasoconstrict to comply with the reduction of volume and pressure. Naintindihan nyo na? Siguro a little bit, I'm sure, nakukuha nyo na yung difference ng compliance and distensibility. Mahirap lang siya, but I'm sure someday maintindihan nyo. If you want to learn more, it's in your book. Nakasulat siya sa libro niyo. Okay. Now, because of that compliance, distensibility, the pressure produced by the contraction of the LV, therefore we will be able to produce that systolic and diastolic pressure. Okay? Systolic and diastolic pressure. Now, if you compute the systolic minus diastolic pressure, that's pulse pressure. Okay ba tayo doon? Kahapon pala nagkamali ako. Sabi ko, ang mean arterial pressure is 2 systolic plus 1. Tama pala yung nasa slide ko. Tama pala yun. So mali palang pinagkukumpute ko, no? Buti na lang nagtiteach ako. Kahit pa paano na recall ng konti. Alright. So, let's go back to pulse pressure. it's also nice to look at the blood pressure not only on the systolic and diastolic pressure. Kasi alam niyo, in clinical, ang tinitingnan, sino mga nurse dito? Yan, di ba? BP lang yung mata natin. Only the systolic and diastolic. Doc, 180 na, yataas. Doc, 80-50. Di ba? We're just looking at the blood pressure per se. Now, I need you to open your mind and look at the pulse pressure as well. Because there is a different understanding there. You know that there are three things that impact. Wow, impact. Three things that parang Miss International lang. So, three things that affects pulse pressure. Hindi na masulat sa slides, I'm sorry. Kasi ilalabas ko siya sa exam, so hindi ko siya sinusulat. Paswari yung gumawas na nun. So, first that impacts pulse pressure is the stroke volume. The greater the stroke volume, the better the pulse pressure. Okay ba tayo? Next is, of course, compliance of the vessel. And the last, which is the least, is ejection fraction. Ang left ventricle has an ejection fraction. Hindi niyo pa siguro alam yon, but left ventricle has an ejection fraction. Meron yung stroke volume, meron yung ejection fraction. Now, how do you get the stroke volume? Mga mare, sino may alam? So, end diastolic volume minus the end systolic volume is the stroke volume. So, during diastole, if you have 120 ml inside the left ventricle, and during systole, ang natira na lang, end systolic volume is 20, ilan ang stroke volume? Ha? 120 end diastolic volume, and during systole, ang natira na end systolic volume is only 20 ml. Ilan ang stroke volume? 100 ml ay pag naglalak na niya utak no kay mathematics. Ayoko mag-isip. So, during diastole, the blood volume inside the left ventricle is 120 ml. Pag contract niya at end systole, ang nabilin na is 20 ml. Pero naman ang ginawas, 100 ml. That is stroke volume, my dear. Yung pala yun. Pakadilaw, ma. Pag-compute kita stroke volume din. And diastolic volume. Ganun. So, stroke volume. Now, if you get the stroke volume and divide it with the end diastolic volume, that is the ejection fraction. Nakuha niyo ba yun? Ha? Try mo nga mag-compute, my dear. 120 divided by, ilan yung lumabas kanina? 100. 120 divided by 100. Ilan? Ay, baliktad. 120 ata divided by 100. Pera ka percent. Compute ako. Calculate. Pero, pagbaliktad na daw. Oo. 100 over 120. Yan, 83% ang ejection fraction niya. Meaning, that's the percent of the stroke volume over the initial volume. Okay ba tayo doon? Uy! No, parang stroke na yun. Yung kukul ba? Ha? Yung kukul ba ako? Kasi alam nyo, if you go to clinical, what is important is the stroke volume and the ejection fraction. Importante ejection fraction. So, there are three things that impacts or affects pulse pressure. One is stroke volume. The higher the stroke volume, the better the pulse pressure. The lower the stroke volume, the lower the pulse pressure. And compliance. The more compliant a vessel, normal lang ang ano. If that is less compliant, it will affect the pulse pressure. Kasi tataas na masyado ang systolic pressure, bababa naman ang diastolic pressure. Kasi hindi siya compliant. Di ba, ang compliance, we are talking about pag-increase ng volume, ayaw yun ng super taas, kaya it will expand, kaya bumaba lang back to normal. Nag-gets nyo ba yun? Pero kung hindi siya compliant, pag taas ng volume, hindi man lang siya warilahin nakikuan. Walang pakialaman, hindi siya nag-distend, hindi siya naging compliant. So what will happen to the pressure? Ganun din. Parang kanina yung picture, it will remain to be 12 millimeters mercury. Hindi niya ibababa down to 8 or 9 millimeters mercury. Okay ba tayo doon? Uy, mga kapatid, that is physiology. Kasi, baka mas maintindihan nyo if we go to pathophysiology. So, oh, wait lang. Bago tayo doon, let's look at the pressure shape in an artery. So, you will have systole, aakyat siya, and in diastole, bababa siya. So, the peak is, ano ang systolic pressure niya? 120? Anong, sa baba, anong diastolic pressure niya? 80. So, pagbaba niya, imbis na diretso yung bababa, you will see an sharp incisura. That is because of the closure of the aortic valve. The closure of the aortic valve causes that incisura. Kasi parang it will try to push a little bit of blood, so it causes that, imbis na bababa lahat ng drug, pag close ng aortic valve, it causes a little bit turbulence, and it causes that a little bit increase, pero bumaba din naman. Pero diretso din naman pababa. So that's because of the aortic valve. Now let's try to look at here. In aortic sclerosis, the artery, aorta, is not compliant, is not distensible, is stiff. So pag contract ni LV, 120 ml ang lumabas, what will happen to the pressure? It will remain to be high kasi hindi siya naging compliant. Unlike in a normal individual, kahit 120 ml ang lumabas, the pressure will only be 120 millimeters mercury. Here, 120 ml lang din ang lumabas, but the pressure is 160. Hindi niya naibaba. Kasi hindi siya naging compliant. Okay ba tayo doon, mga kapatid? So, as I told you, there are three things that affect pulse pressure. The first is stroke volume. The second is compliance. Yun, naka-apekto siya. Less compliant yung aorta. What happened to the pulse pressure? It will be widened. Why? Because during systole, hindi siya naging compliant, mataas ang pressure, 160. But during diastole, wala naman siyang pakialam, 80. So what is the pulse pressure? 160 minus 80? 80. As compared sa normal individual, 120 minus 80, anong pulse pressure? So, compliance affects pulse pressure. Okay ba tayo? Now, let us try to look at aortic valve stenosis. During systole, the aortic valve does not open, so less amount of stroke volume goes out. What will happen to the pressure? Magda-drop yun. So, ilan ang pressure niya dito? Mga 110? 110 over 80. Tama? So, what is the pulse pressure at this time? See? The decline in stroke volume affects the pulse pressure, not decline din. Let's try to get this example, patent ductus arteriosus. So in patent ductus arteriosus, lumabas ang dugo, mamaya muna, takas ang pressure pero mamaya ang explanation. Now during diastole, napakahaba. Kasi imbis na babagsak agad, meron kasing dugo na tumuturo, na diretso nga to ang main pulmonary artery. Kaya ang haba-haba ng ano niya, ng diastole. So, nagdi-deep down din yung diastolic pressure niya. Sobrang baba ng pressure kasi in normal individual, ang lahat ng dugo lumabas lang. Tapos, nagsara ng aortic valve, nag-relax ng LV. Pero ito, hindi pa nagsasara ang aortic valve kasi may lumalabas pa eh. Labas pa ng labas siya hanggang bumababa ng masyado ang pressure. So it reduces the pressure. However, that blood that went to the main pulmonary artery will go back to left atrium, will go back to the left ventricle. Dumami na yung volume. So on the next contraction and succeeding contraction and forever contraction, napakarami ng volume which increases the pressure. That's why this pressure, systolic pressure is increased and the diastolic pressure is decreased. So what happens is, ano nangyayari? Ano ng pressure niya? 160 over 40. Anong pulse pressure? Lumaki, lumiit. Lumaki nun? Kaloka? This is an example also that if there's an increase in stroke volume, it will affect the pulse pressure. Bakit lumaki ang stroke volume? Kasi meron kang mixing of blood yung lumabas. That babalik din yan pumasok sa main pulmonary artery instead na to the systemic circulation. Now let's look at aortic regurgitation. So in aortic regurgitation, systole wala namang problem. Lumabas yung dugo. Kaso lang during diastole, Diyos ko dahil, naglilit yung blood papuntang LV. So what will happen to the blood volume in the LV? It will increase. On the next contraction, pag-contract niya, napakadami ng volume. Tama? So what will happen to the pressure during systole? It will increase. That's the reason why mataas din. No? So, bumababa din yung pressure during diastole kasi during diastole may naglilit papasok. So, affected siya. Tumataas din ang pulse pressure. So, in these three examples, the aortic regurgitation, PDA, and arteriosclerosis increases the pulse pressure. Oh my God, alam niyo kung anong pang-apat? Sepsis. Kung naninig kayo sa kwento ko. At ang lumabas na tridor, kay gimbalyuan ang aortic regurgitation, him aortic stenosis. Waray nga to PDA, ESD, and waray man arteriosclerosis. Actually, waray ko man yung kamemorya nga duduha. Adi man lang natitigang na aortic regurgitation. By experience, I know AR has a high pulse pressure kasi ang BP nila mataas. At din sobrang baba ng diastolic pressure. That's by clinical. May mga patient kasi mga aortic regurgitation. So, natigaw ko yan. Pero yung dalawa, hindi ko pa naintindihan at that time. So, sepsis, girl, ang lumabas. Sepsis. In sepsis, it's not really the systolic that increase, it's the diastolic that decline. So, there will be a wide pulse pressure. So, it's nice also to look at not the blood pressure itself, but the pulse pressure, because there are disease entity that can guide you. Okay. Okay na tayo dyan? Bahala kayo sa buhay niyo. Dumping. When we talk about dumping, the pressure declines from the aorta hanggang sa vein. That's dumping. Bumababa yung pressure. Nakakaloka naman yung capillary mo, 120 millimeters mercury pa rin, di ba? Pagkapaan mo na, pulsate naman na mo. So, bumababa yung pressure. That's what we call as damping. And it is reduced because of resistance and compliance. Oh Lord, pahirap ng pahirap. So, in the arterial and capillary, the pulsation is now reduced because there is now a problem with the resistance and the compliance. Okay? So, if the vessel is resistant, although tataas ang pressure before that, and however, dahil kipot na, yung volume na pumasok, konti na. So, mababa na ang pressure dito. Tama? Eh, ganun din sa susunod na segment. Konti na yung volume na pumasok, lahat na yung pakonti ng pakonti. Pababa na ng pababa ang pressure. So that's what we call as damping. Compliance. Dahil naman ang compliance ng vessel, kahit naman maliit ang volume nun doon, this time, compliant siya actually. Kasi nami-maintain niya yung enough pressure to flow to the next. Na-gets niyo ba yun? Bumaba yung volume, pero itataas niya ng konti yung enough na pressure. Hindi super taas, but enough pressure para mag-flow yung fluid. Okay? Kasi kung hindi rin siya maging compliant, kasi di ba kumonti na yung volume, parang example kanina, nabawasan na yung volume, it has to comply, okay, to maintain an enough pressure. Kasi kung hindi siya mag-comply, hindi mag-flow yung fluid. Kasi for the fluid to flow, there must be pressure gradient. Okay ba tayo doon? Or nagkuha ng iyong utak, nag-lock in na. Makapag-Facebook ng konti, stress na yung mind ko. Ganun. Okay. So in the capillaries, halos wala na. Wala ng pulsations because of damping. Okay ba tayo? And damping is directly proportional to the product of resistance times compliance. Mahala tayo sa buhay, day. Pagkilala mo yan, yung may Maria, hunti kang nagpagtikang nga na yan tapos parang, kaya naman naintindihan. It's just so massive, vast of knowledge. No? And you want to be in white and be called a doctor. Pero ayaw mo mag-aral, ayaw mo matutunan ka lahat. Ayaw ko matutunan ang action potential. Pero gusto ko lang maging doktor. Ayaw ko matutunan ang mga pulse pressure. Pero gusto ko maging doktor. Huh? Ayaw ko matutunan yung mga differential diagnosis ng increase and decrease in pulse pressure. Pero gusto ko maging doktor. Ayaw ko maintindihan yung mga distensibility and compliance. Wala akong pakialam. Pero gusto ko maging doktor. These are things that you need to understand. Ha? Okay. Mabilis lang to. Parang ayaw ko na nga i-skip ko sana. Kaso lang, student kayo Sino dito hindi marunong mag-blood pressure? Kumuha ng BP. Ikaw? Oh my God, wala tayong BP. No? Dapat meron tayong BP apparatus at mag-practice sila. Turuan natin sila, no? Mga NRS kasi, PT, correct na. Biochem of the cell natin sila. Biology pala. Medtech. Danay, pwede diri, pwede maarang. Pagdasal natin sila. So, BP, you need a BP apparatus, okay? So, ang ginagawa nyo yan, you inflate the cuff. Pag inflate mo ng cuff, yung vessel nun, mako-compress. Tama? Walang mag-flow-flow. So, ibig sabihin, you have to compress up to the point that you completely compress the vessel. Wala ka nang maririnig na sound nun. If you put your stethoscope over here, wala kang maririnig na sound kasi compress completely yung vessel before that. Walang mag-flow na dugo papunta doon. Di ba? Didinin mo pang-auscultate. So, if you compress the cuff here, walang mag-flow kasi yung artery na-compress mo completely. So, you will not hear a sound. However, once you decline the pressure, you release the pressure, the vessel will start to open again, and the blood flow will now spurt, and then that spurting, hahagod yan sa arterial wall. You can hear that. We call it Korofkov sound. Bless you. So, pwede namang ibang name ng sound yun, wala naman tayong pakialam. Kaso lang, si Korofkov kasi ang niyan. So, pagdasal natin ang kaluluwa niya. So, in respect of the person who discovered that, we call that sound as Korofkov sound. Pwede namang murmur lang din, no? Kasi turbulence lang din naman yan. Dising lang din anyway. Korofkov sound ang tawag niya. So, the first sound that you hear as you release from, let's say, naging 180, in-increase mo, tapos na-compress na yung vessel, wala ka na marinig. As you were going down, you hear the first sound at 140 millimeters mercury. That is the first Korofkov sound. That reflects systolic pressure. And then, as you open the vessel, as you were lowering down at 80 below, wala ka nang narinig kasi nga, completely open na yung vessel. And then during the diastole, wala ka naman talagang maririnig kasi laminar flow na yun. Wala nang turbulence. Okay? Kanina lang may turbulence kasi you were compressing the vessel. Okay ba tayo doon? So, pag mawala na yung sound during as you were lowering down, that's the diastolic pressure. So, you hear the sound at 140, that's the systolic pressure, and you don't hear the sound anymore below 80, that the diastolic pressure is 80. So, 120 over 80. Yun yung pagkuha ng blood pressure, sir. And it needs practice, no? Mag-try na pagod na 120-80, pero wala nang diabetic. Nay, alam nyo, kung ano pa naman, bawal magpanggap. Bawal talaga. If you are a doctor, bawal talaga magpanggap. If you don't hear, bahala ka mapagalitan. You will not say 120 over 80, wala ka palang narinig. No? Bawal yun. Kasi it will cause more harm than just to relieve yourself out of fear of the doctor. Bawal mo. So kung wala ka narinig, sabihin mo, wala akong narinig, sorry, bungol. Tapos tanga pala, nakakuang pa nun. Ano mo, bell ngayon nakabaliktad, tanga. Diyos ko, dahil. Tapos tanga liwat, parang nga nakabutang din mo, Diyos ko, ng tanga na. Or bakit talaga wala talaga blood pressure? No, wala ka talagang marinig. Baka naman talaga, conscious ko din, wala na talaga palpatory lang. When we say palpatory, wala ka nang naririnig na diastolic pressure, just the first chord of sound, tapos waray na hinga bigla. We call it palpatory, meaning napalpate mo lang yung systolic pressure, walang diastolic pressure. Ang problema ng tridor na nurse, Dok, palpatory 80-50, paano naman yung tridor? Buwang ko din yung nurse. Ako pat ginuuwat, palpatory 80-50, buwa ito. Kasi pag palpatory, waray na diastolic. So, na kung mga nurse nila, tapos nag-update yung palpatory 80-50. Oh my God, mali pa. Ang mga niya ng rangkangan utak ni Dok. Kasi pag palpatory, na-palpate mo lang, wala kang narinig. Tama? As you were deflating, you palpated the pulse. But you were not actually able, on the first attempt, binababa mo, wala kang narinig, walang systolic, walang diastolic. Pero nung kinakapa mo, na-feel mo, at 80, nakapa mo yung pulso. No? Palpatory, 80 lang siya. Walang diastolic yun. Paano mo, nakapa mo, tapos wala mo nakakapa, masumag ka kamay natin diastolic, systolic, wala. Just systolic pressure, meaning palpatory pressure. Okay? Napalpate mo lang, hindi mo na-auscultate. Bahala kayo, sir. Bahala kayo dyan. Yan ang mga keme. Jurassic, pinagbabawal na. Eto na siya ngayon. Eto na tayo ngayon. Mas bongga na. Dok, kasi nang mas accurate, ito or ito. Depende kung sino kumukuha, depende sa battery, depende sa brand. Mas bongga ng brand, mas Apple kaysa ng So kung sa Omron, bongga yun. Yung ibang brand, bahala na si Batman. Bisa naman Omron, wala naman battery, tsaka. Tapos Omron naman, tapos wala naman nag-appear, tsaka naman. Kay atrial fib nga yan, so tsaka. So, kailangan mag-appear here dida. So, eto naman, kung bongga din yung kumukuha, kaysa naman bungol, atulihon, or di talaga may maarang, makuha din. But, this is actually better. So, by at least 3 to 5 millimeters mercury accurate than this one. Pero, this is better than nothing, no? Okay ba tayo dun? Kasi may mga patient ako, Dok, di lang amon. Pwede rin mo kayo maaramhan eh. Parang pa na ganito kaysa tuwaray. Kasi nakakapag-measure niya na. Ikaw naman natin, diri. Dapat, pangit ito, very accurate. Yes.
Doc, which is better po, the wrist na or the same lahiran?
Ini kasi niya, yes, this is pwede sa wrist. Merong mga device na wrist lang. Merong namang device na pwede sa arm. The same lang din yun. Same lang din yun. But that wrist and arm is actually better. This is better than the wrist and the arm na electronic. The aneroid is better than the electronic. Ang electronic, merong sa wrist, merong sa arm. Okay? However, the electronic is better than nothing. Yun yung ini-explain ko. May question?
So, Doc, about the palpatory method yung pagkuhan GP.
Yes.
Di ba na systolic lang ang buka?
Yes.
Pero, dahil Doc, like, let's say, gin-cock mo, tapos like, may initial hiyang
Yes.
pulse. Pero di ba dahil continuous, eventually
Wala ka nang makakapa nun.
Wala yun.
Ang imong ginbibiling nila is, di ba, pag ang first ni mga nakapa at 80, tas nawala na at 40, you will not say 80-40. Yes. You will just say 80.
Palpatory.
Kasi hindi siya mawawala dapat at 40. Nagets mo? Try not to put the cuff, palpate the pulse. Dapat makakapa mo yung pulse. Okay? Now, when you inflate, mawawala yung pulse because you have compressed the vessel. Now, when you release the vessel, makakapa mo ulit yung pulse. Then, as you release the cuff and remove the cuff, dapat makakapa mo yung pulse. Okay ba tayo? So, wala siyang systolic, diastolic. So, pag palpatory lang, you will only have systolic. And then, all throughout, dapat makakapa mo na yung pulso. Hindi na siya mawawala. Kung mawala man siya, Hindi yun diastolic. Something happened. Baka namamatay na yung pasyente. Okay tayo? So, palpatory, only systolic pressure. Wala kang diastolic pressure. That was a good question. Ano bang question? Kasi I will not expand myself in explaining BP. Dapat, alam nyo, dapat ano siya, we will go back to the very basic, no, like parang estudyante lang na elementary. Kaso lang, we will have, meron ba tayo, dapat kasi may experiment tayo sa laboratory, how to get the blood pressure. Yes, ma'am.
So, what's the best side po kapag amputee yung patient?
Ano yun?
Best side po ng pag-BP if amputee yung patient?
If ano?
Amputated.
Amputated saan?
Sa arm.
As long as you can get the BP, correct naman yung right and left. For example, ang amputated niya dito, then meron ka pa namang space dito for the brachial, pwede pa naman yun. Pero kung sobrang short na dito ng utod, di ka na nakakabutang unstamp, halipot na lang, ayun na, di na lang haloyo. Okay. But, for example, putulan, duha nga kamot, tail na lang, you can still get the blood pressure in the lower extremity. It's still accurate, but iba na ang normal value nun. Iba na normal value nun. Alin ang mas mataas? BP up or in the lower extremity? There should be a difference, no? Kailangan niyo yung pag-aralan. Hindi ko muna sasabihin because it will not, I think, be part of, I don't know if it's part of the lecture sa susunod. Tingnan ko, papasok ko siya. There is a difference of blood pressure between the right and the left arm, but not too much. Up to how many millimeters mercury? Huh? 10. Correct yan. Now, there's a difference between the blood pressure of the upper extremity and the lower extremity by up to how many? Oh. Let us see, assignment. Okay, so, yun, mag-iiba lang yung blood pressure mo. And getting the blood pressure in the lower extremity is hard. Kasi ilalagay mo yung cuff dito, no? Eh, kailangan mo ng mas malaking cuff. Hindi pwede yung maliit na cuff lang. Tapos ilalagay mo yung dito mo ng pang-auscultate, no? Pwede ka naman liwat dito, no? Problema din mo lang nakakapandorsalis artery, no? Diyos ko, Lord, ang hirap. Kaya amazed ako sa mga nagpapanggap na nurses na lower extremity lang nakakuha ng bigay. Ay, pala ka mo. Sige, go ka, nag-effort man yan. Papabayaan ko lang. Okay. May question ka, sir? Wala. Parang you were asking something. Huwag ka na mahiya.
Umati ka na lugod ko.
Ha?
Umati ka na lugod. Mura yung gagyakan.
Lagi. Kaya kumita man ang kanina. Okay na tayo, ma'am? Nasagot na yon. Ganyan yan ha, ayoko. You inflate the keme, you release the valve, and then underlying events, the artery is completely occluded, and so there is no blood flow, and so you will not hear a sound. And then, as the pressure is going down, there will be turbulent sound produced by the blood spurting into the partially open artery. That is the first sound that you hear. And then as the scalp pressure continues to decrease, the entire vessel is open. You will not be able to hear the sound anymore kasi open na masyado yung artery. And then, diastolic pressure na yun. So you will read the systolic and diastolic pressure. Okay? Yes?
May mga, di ba, napapansin ko lang sa hospital, may mga nag-around sa sige mga monitor ng BP, mas hindi rin nagamit stent.
Ano yun?
Hindi rin nagamit stent pag nag-monitor ng BP. Tapos nag-base na di ba doon pag na-lower na nga,
Hindi yun accurate. Yes. Di ba, pag magaling na balik ka na mag-BP, pag nag-auscultate ka, may maririnig mo sa 140, pero nakita mo rin gumanon at 140, hindi yun accurate. You have to listen to it. Pwede siya by experience 140. Natitigo mo 140. But if you try to summarize out of how many times you see that and predict that versus the time that you hear, mas accurate yung naririnig natin than na nakikita mo doon sa first bump. Kasi minsan nagbabump yun at 160 but hindi mo pa naririnig yung sound. Doon pa siya sa 140. So, kung ano ang tinuro ng mga, anong ginagawa natin, malamang yun yung tunay, no? So we don't look at, hindi tayo mag-auscultate, yung mag-BP ka, bababa ka lang, So, paano mo naman malalaman ng diastole, Abel? No? Di naman naman hit 80, di man naman hit 80 masukat. Ang diastole. Wala, mahirap ba yun pag walang... Yes, sir. Ano yun? Pulsations. Pwede kang, wala kang pang-auscultate, no? Pwede kang mag-palpatory, that is correct. Pero palpatory, systolic BP ka lang. Ayaw pagsiring ng palpatory 120 over 80. Pwede yun. Wala ka talaga pang-auscultate? Hindi ko, palpatory lang. At least you can predict the systolic BP. Wala ka lang diastolic BP. Parang may nag-question doon, wala. I like question. Yes, sir.
Ito, buwan, for example, if may na natin kiti mo BP ba, pwede ba ito ni mo ma-alter on the spot? Like, for example, ito ba may na kasi na-practice in breathing exercises?
Ano?
Breathing exercises?
Breathing. Pwede ba maapektuhan ang BP with
Pwede
breathing?
ba bagat to lower your BP ba?
Hindi. No. The breathing does not affect the blood pressure. Yes.
Is it really effective na mag-chew ka ng garlic 2 hours before? Tapos
Garlic can lower the blood pressure, but ang sabi nila, you need 1 kilogram. Yes. However, there are some individuals na just one garlic na lower siya. Kasi tao din yun eh. There are pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics. However, to get the 5 milligrams amlodipine versus the garlic, you need 1 kilogram or garlic equivalent to 5 milligrams of amlodipine. So kung gusto mo mag-garlic lang, ayaw kasi gusto mo, ayaw mo mag-medicine na talaga. Sige sir, o sa pakilo ka mag-garlic everyday. Dire-diretso yun sir ha, hindi yung pwedeng ngayon muna, tas rest, tas mamaya. Dire-diretso yun sir. Good question. Yes sir, may question ka pa? I like question. I love questions. Really? Wala na. Wala na. Veins and their functions. The systemic veins flows into the right atrium. You need the right atrial pressure. It has to be 0. Kasi pag tumaas, ang normal na RA pressure is from 0 to 5. More than that, mataas na yun. Actually, pag mag 3, 4, and 5, medyo mataas na siya. Alam niyo kung bakit? If the RA pressure increases, all the rest has to increase para maka-flow. Tama? Tama ba tayo? Kasi kung if the RA pressure is at 10 millimeters mercury, therefore the IVC, inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, has to have a millimeters mercury of at least 15. Tama? Para maka-flow siya sa right atrium. Kaya yung mga may right-sided failure, let's say mataas ang right-sided pressure, RV pressure, mataas, RA pressure, mataas, talagang mag-iidima, magneck vein engorgement, mag-iidima, hepatic congestion, mag-yellow mata because of the hepatic congestion, and the pressure in the veins has to rise higher than the right atrial pressure for it to be able to drain. What will happen if the RA pressure is 5 and the pressure in the veins is 3? What will happen? You will die. Okay ba yan? Hindi okay no? But you will die. Kasi hindi makaka-flow si vein to the right atrium. Tama? Okay. So right atrial pressure is regulated by a balance between ability of the heart to pump out and the blood flow to return to it. Hindi lang ang importante ang lumabas ang dugo sa left ventricle. Importante din na bumalik yung dugo sa right ventricle. If you have embolism, a thrombus, large thrombus in the inferior vena cava, you will die. Mamamatay ka kasi hindi bumalik yung dugo. Dapat yung lumabas, babalik. Actually, in hemodynamics, we focus on yung bumalik para siya lumabas. Hindi baliktad. Ang mga doktor, they are focused already on kung ano ang lalabas, yun ang babalik. Pero baliktad dapat. Doon tayo sa papasok, and then yung pumasok, yan dapat ang lalabas. In the same way, that when I was explaining the Uyghur cycle, I started with the diastole rather than systole. Because the diastole is more important than systole. Okay. Output should equal venous return. If your output, cardiac output, is, let's say, if the stroke volume, ang lumabas doon, kasi stroke volume, in order to get the cardiac output, ang daming formula naman doon. Cardiac output is stroke volume times heart rate. That's the cardiac output. Huh? So, if the cardiac output is ganito, dapat ganun din yung, kung ilang liters yung cardiac output, dapat ganun din yung venous return. Dapat equal sila. Okay ba tayo? Sige. 0. When the RA pressure is above 5, the peripheral venous pressure rises, the jugular veins are distended because magdidistend yan dahil mataas ang RA pressure, kailangan ni jugular vein tumaas din ng pressure. Kaso lang yung pagtaas niya hindi naman sobrang taas. So makaka-flow siya to the right atrium. Kaso lang hindi lahat na i-deliver niya to the right atrium. So some of the blood volume is contained in the jugular vein. That's why the jugular vein is distended. Kasi distensible naman siya, no? So nandun yung maraming volume. Kaya pag makikita mo yung pasyente, distended yung jugular veins niya. No? Ibig sabihin, if you see a distended jugular vein, the RA pressure is high. Okay? Okay na lang. Oh. So if you try to look at the veins, mababa naman yan. So, dito, 90. Pababa ng pababa to 40. 20. Papuntang RA, 0. Okay? Nakakaloka kung dito maging 100. Ano mangyayari if the femoral vein will be 100? Di makaka-flow, no? Mag-iidima din. Tama? Anong mangyayari if your vena cava will have a milling pressure of, let's say, 45? Huruba kutil, ano? Tama? So, pababa, anong pababa yung pressure? Okay. However, meron din naman masyadong negative. Iba na yun eh. Kasi we are talking about vacuum na eh. Tama? Naintindihan niyo yung vacuum, hindi? May nakabado, tapos nag-travel ka matuha Japan, yung vacuum mga tanan mo mga bado. Siyempre, hindi mo surod lang, buti ay lang. Ito pagkat oh, damo ni bado, pero buti ay lang. Hanti pabalik ka na kayo, wari man yung ka-vacuum, wari na eksakto, di dahil mo, bagahe. So, the vacuum is, it creates a negative pressure inside. So, it compresses yung mga damit mo. In the same way, in the skull, kasi vacuum yun, the pressure there is iba compared sa mga pressure ng veins dito sa lower extremity na hindi naman yung vacuum. Okay ba tayo doon? Kaya negative. Sagittal sinus, negative din. Kasi vacuum naman siya. So, paano naman itong nag-flow doon? Negative man. Eh di bongga din, negative. Positive 0 naman si right atrium, negative siya. Eh di makaka-flow pa rin. Unless it is compressed. Kahit naman negative ang pressure, pero hindi naman siya compressed, makaka-flow pa rin siya. Kasi from negative 10 mm mercury, 0 naman ang right atrium, makaka-flow pa rin. Okay ba yun? Bahala kayo. However, if you are standing, kaya siya actually 90. Kasi if you are standing by gravity, there is pooling of blood in the lower extremity. Kaya siya magna-90. Increasing volume, increasing pressure. Although magdi-distend naman siya, kaso lang naipababa lang yung pressure up to 90. No? Siguro kung hindi siya distensible, baka aabot pa yan ng mga 120. If the veins are not compliant, mas mataas pa yun if you are standing there. Kaya nga yung iba, di ba nadidismayo na? Kaya nagtitikahataas na ang pressure, no? Pag tikahataas ang pressure, mas maging mataas nga nito artery, wala, di, makaka-flow. Tapos venous return, dismayo ang pasyente, no? Ganun yun. However, if you try to move up and down, or walk, the gastrocnemius will try to compress the veins, and somehow the vessel, the vein is compressed, and then the volume is delivered into the right atrium. Somehow the veins has a reduced volume. Somehow the pressure also decreases. Okay ba tayo doon? So if you are standing still, you need to do like this, no? Para makontract yung gastrocnemius. Naintindihan niyo yun, sir? Okay. Ooh. There are valves. These valves of the veins help the blood volume to be moving forward. Kasi alam niyo, pag nakatayo tayo, although meron namang pressure yun that will cause the blood volume to go to the right atrium. the valve helps. Kasi, pag contract ni LV, pag igbawan blood volume having in that segment, masara ang valve. So at least ada na hiya step 1. Pag contract naman, na-push niya naman, natuhiyan step 2. Pag close naman, at least ato niya step 2, no? Has na mahinga madinala ito. Nakits niyo? Hindi. Nakikits ko kasi. Pero paano ko ba i-explain? Kasi kung yung vein, kunwari may valve dito, may valve dito, may valve, per segment siya eh. So, pag may pupush siya tipa igbaw, at least aada na hiya dahil itong nga segment. Kay mga close man ang valve, di rin naman hilulusad nga ho nga dito pakadi, nahinga din na hiya. Next contraction, aadi na hiya. Next contraction, aadi na hiya. Magtitika igbaw hiya, di rin tipalusad. Na-gets nyo? If the valve will close. Huh? However, if the valve is incompetent, pag igbaw niyan third segment, bangin ang 120 ml at 20 ml linos sad nga hawag to. So nabawasan yan 100 ml. Yan yung nangyayari if the valve is incompetent, such as in varicose valves, varicosities. Yung ganyan, no? Kaya nagiging dab ko itong veins, tapos nanuhubag itong lower extremity because there will be pooling of veins, of volume of blood in the vein, kay incompetent man. Although may ada nakakabalik ka rhythm, but there will be pooling of blood, tataas ang pressure ng vein, so the circulation is affected. Some of the fluid will go to the extracellular interstitial space. That's the one that's causing edema. Okay ba tayo doon? Nahirapan kayo mag-intindi doon? Good luck then. Yes, sir.
Question lang, Doc. Sa may kasi Doc, anak kong lolo is nag-hima yahan for a while.
Huh?
Pero nawala, hindi like after a few parang hindi nito Doc, may mga blockage na.
Yes, so the problem is probably on the veins. Meron tayong venous thrombosis din dito. Pwede yon. Or, pwedeng iba din ang problem. Let's say, mga arterial problem, pwede din yun. So, marami ang cause ng edema. You have to understand that edema is fluid in the interstitial space. Tama? So, for fluid to be in the interstitial space, you need to understand hydrostatic pressure and oncotic pressure. Oh, no. So, hydrostatic pressure is the pressure that pushes fluid out. Tama? If the hydrostatic pressure is so high, then more fluid will go to the interstitial space. Tama? Baka mataas ang hydrostatic pressure. Or, pwedeng, the oncotic pressure is the pressure that holds fluid inside the vessel. So what happens if the oncotic pressure is reduced? Blood will seep out into the interstitial space, pwedeng mag-cause ng edema. So that's 2. Or, the interstitial space, the fluid there is removed by lymphatic vessels. Hindi pa part ng lecture natin, it will be lectured next time. But if there's a problem of those lymphatic system, pwede kang mag-edema. Okay ba? Pwede din naman na iba ang cause like swelling, infection. Hello, daming question ni Sir. Maraming differential diagnosis ng Sir. Kailangan yun ipa-check up. Nawara naman, edi thank you Lord. Waray, madali madadiagnose ni Doc. So, balik na lang ako na hubag. There are some workup naman magagawa nyo. More baka sa vascular ang problem. Okay, question? I like question. Yes, ma'am. When we talk about varicosities, there is a problem in the anatomy of the veins. There is a problem in the anatomy. So, ibig sabihin, imbis na maganda yung collagen network kaya may adventitia, no? Nagkaka-problem siya doon to the point na nagiging aneurysma siya. Huh? So, pwede siyang genetics, pwede din siyang ma-acquire. Let's say, eventually, na-damage siya by infection, for example. Or nagkaroon ka ng thrombosis in the valve, causing the valve not to open and not to close. So, the volume below the valve will be increased. It will distend the vein sobrang-sobra to its capacity. na narubaan niya elasticity, pwede siyang mag-varicosities. So, ang pinanganak niya, bongga man ang tilhan, bibi, cute ng fit. Tapos pagdapo ng trainer ng kagawas na, pwede siyang ganun. Okay? Meron din naman na pinanganak ka lang, you are genetically predisposed to have vein. So, ang bata pa niya, parang okay naman development. Pero as nag-grow na siya, dumako na ang tao, one vein naman, pangdagko, abnormal na niya pag-grow. Kasi genetically, hindi siya nag-produce ng magandang vein. So, it's on the anatomic destruction or development of the vein. Oh, I like the question. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, sir.
Ay, yes. Bakit po?
Ano po, paano po na-experience, ano po na-explanation mga guru?
Ano?
Pregnant.
Pregnant. I like the question. Pregnant. So the uterus will try to compress what vein? Inferior vena cava. So sometimes not the inferior vena cava lang, but the other. We have a lot of veins kasi. Femoral vein, lang inferior vena cava. It will compress that. So it might cause the edema. There is another explanation bakit nag-i-edema ang isang buntis. So when you are pregnant, there are a lot of hormones produced. The blood volume is increased, the stroke volume is increased. So because of that blood volume, pwede siyang mag-edema. Second is the salt and water. Pag pumunta tayo sa nephrology, kidneys, madidiscuss natin doon yung salt and water. But in chemistry, if a cell, nilagyan mo ng maraming salt, ano mangyayari? It will draw water to it. So if the patient is eating a lot of salt, hindi niya maiihip yung water. So the water will be contained. Tama? So pwede siyang mag-cause ng edema. So for a pregnant woman, hindi kami nag-iisip na it is more of pathophysiologic, but more of physiologic response to pregnancy. So hindi natin binibigyan ng mga diuretic pampainin. Hindi. So iba ang management natin doon. So baka kailangan lang magpilipin, no? Baka kailangan lang i-raise yung legs, baka lang bawasan yung salt intake, mga ganun. Hindi, ito pag ginaw, grabe ka nung pangalangon din. Puro na lamon, chichirya, ay pag ginaw. Mga ganun. So, those are explanations bakit nag-iedema ang isang pregnant women. Baka naman no, may heart failure pala siya, no? So that's why win-work out siya. Yeah, I like questions. I really do. Yes?
So how would you manage a varicose vein?
Ang hirap nun. Minsan, ang varicose veins ay it affects the peripheral vein, not the really big vein. Yung mga labas-labas lang na vein, hindi. So the flow is not affected. Kahit meron siyang varicosities doon, hindi siya nakaka-affect. Not even causing edema. Not even causing pain. Andun lang siya. So it's an aesthetic problem. Aesthetic. So kung hindi ka naman artista, hayaan mo na lang siya. So most of the time, wala din kaming ginagawa. Palagyan mo na lang ng tattoo if you want or hayaan mo na lang. However, if that varicosities affects the bigger veins, then that's a big problem. Kailangan na siyang ayusin if it causes edema, pain, affects the blood flow, kailangan siyang operahan. So how do we operate? We just remove the valve, destroy the valve, para flow na lang siya ng flow. Or, we remove the varicose vein. Tik-tik, gunting, tanggal. Waray na niya. Hosay ka na.
Dok, would you remove di ba ito? May backflow.
Yes, meron backflow, pero at least may forward flow.
Mas higher threat.
Yes, mas forward flow eh, kaysa sa nandun pa yung vein na nakakaabala pa siya sa forward flow. So, ang problem mo na is forward flow and back flow. Kung tanggalin mo yung valve, at least ang problem mo na lang is back flow. May forward flow ka. Alin ang pipiliin mo? Walang back flow, walang forward. Ay, may problem ka sa back flow, may problem ka pa sa forward flow. Kaysa sa may problem ka na lang sa back flow, wala ka ng problem sa forward flow. Medications can help, but it's a mechanical problem, so it needs surgery, it needs something to be done on the vein. But suffice to say, varicose veins, wala din ginagawa kasi aesthetic problem siya. But if it can cause clinical problems, edema, pain, abnormality in the blood flow, thrombosis, then we have to do something. Anticoagulant, ganon, diuretic, ganon, operation. Stockings is also helpful. Just to compress the veins, to somehow improve the chemistry, the flow, prevent dumping of blood inside the veins. So it can also help. Mga 30 to 40 millimeters mercury na stockings. I'd like to question. So nakapag-set na tayo ng mood that you can ask me anytime. Kasi it's the moment that you can ask me. During exam, you cannot ask me, Dok, anong answer sa number 1? Hindi na pwede yun. It's my moment to ask you na. No? Wala? Wala nang may tanong? Ah, yes,
So,
sir!
Di ba, parang to, it's a bad thing to be upside down for a long time kayo to pressure mabuild?
Yes, for a long time. For a short time, it may be helpful. But for a long time, no. Kasi di ba upside down mo yung kalugari mo. So, in order for blood flow to circulate, you need a stronger contraction, no? Para lang maka-flow. Kasi kung binaliktad mo by gravity, mag-iiba na yung anatomy, yung physiology nun eh. Kaya ang gusto mo talaga, yung may venous return and my cardiac output. So kung baliktad mo tao, nakakaloka talaga ito. No? Kailangan mag-stronger yung contraction. Pag strong naman yung contraction, para lang yung ma-push outward kay by against gravity ano, mag-stronger contraction niya. Ang pagbalik liwat handog, bongga naman na, ano, ginudang mo yung venous return, kote ini mo cardiac output. Lipong haulo, no? Try mo, sir. Mangingitong ito na makataas yung mong presyo na mumula-mula pa nito na mumula-mula tapos niyan. Chemical. Magkakamaya dito problem ng venous return and cardiac output. And then stroke, and then goodbye. Yes, sir. Ay, enough ka na to? Satisfied ka, sir? Ikaw, sir? Ano?
Regarding a quiz.
Quiz! Ano yan? Ay, bakit?
Afterwards ko, case ko na natin.
Waray! Kapoy! Bakit nga ni mga 10 minutes tapos na kamo, tapos urulin na? 10. 4 p.m. I think. Si ma'am siya, alam mo, bibigay busy ako talaga sa mga magkabuha ng showcase doon diretso. Ano pa? Bakit gusto mo pa mag-lecture? Ano mag-usap ka nag-biochem, curve cycle? Hindi ko kaya yun. Mag-dehydrogenase pa, pre-test. Stroke ka mo, stroke ka pa, kubuha, sirantan ka mo, seizure tayo lahat. Ano pa? Wala na? Oh, okay. Let's call it a day. So tomorrow, what time tayo? 10. Yes, sir.
Same ito daw ang varicose.
Ano yun? Varicocele, mas iba, pareho, so almost same here. Iba like affected. Kasi kung varicose veins, yung sa mga extremities yun, may mga varicocele kasi na nandun sa liver, nandun sa mga organs. So, veins din yun. But minsan, tinatawag natin varicocele doon. Ay, may pakabutan. Yes. May na laboratory na bago lang. Exciting yung laboratory. Pero na bago lang. I think meron tayong schedule na pinasa. Meron ba? Tinignan ko lang madalian, parang I'm so advanced. Parang nauuna lang ako ng konti. Pero don't worry, mahuhuli din ako. Kasi the next days, nabibisi yung beauty ko, so mahuhuli din ako. Ano man? May laboratory yan, pero by group kayo. Tama? By group. Meaning yung ibang group, wala mo nang pakialam. Nasa bahay lang. Tapos yung group, no, kasi we'll have to do laboratory. Pero yung ibang laboratory, nasabay-sabay. Ano pa? Ano yung problema? Okay. Attendance, sir. Okay.